Sometimes people say to me, Rod, is selling in the motor industry in the blood or is it in the mind? And I think that there are some businesses that get to you, that really get inside you. And I think the motor industry is one of those. Now, I started in the motor industry, having left the RAF in 1971, and progressed steadily through the business until I became Group General Manager of one of the largest automotive chains in the United Kingdom. I came to New Zealand in 1984 for a different challenge. So I worked a couple more years in the motor industry here in New Zealand. But something frustrated me about that time. It was the fact that in those 15 years that I'd been in the industry, nothing seemed to change. We did the same things over and over again. In 1986, I set up Fortune in New Zealand because they had a different approach to training, a different approach to selling. And amazingly, when I stepped out of the motor industry, it was incredible. Working with companies like Telecom and Air New Zealand, Fletcher Challenge and various other organisations through the 80s, 90s and 2000, I discovered a more effective sales process, a 21st century solution-based selling philosophy. And just recently, I stepped back into the motor industry for a 6-month project. I got back into the industry and I discovered dealers were doing the same things that I'd left behind. The road to the sale was still the key. And it's not the key because it's so adversarial. It isn't the way customers like to be sold. See, the industry, they were recycling mediocrity, I call it. That is, car salesmen bouncing from one dealer to another. And it's almost a prerequisite in the car industry. You know, if you want to employ a salesperson, they've got to have sold cars somewhere, which is, I think, crazy. So if you go outside the motor industry and you find that people thrive, companies thrive on training people who have never, ever sold in the past. Thankfully, the client I was working with had seen the light and he and his team had brought into a different way of thinking. The challenge now of how to sell in the motor industry today is about shifting the paradigm. It's about changing the mindsets. It's about understanding that no longer can we close sales. Today we must think about a different mindset of opening accounts. Today we can't use that old road to the sale exactly the same on everybody because clearly they're not all the same. We need to understand how people's behaviour is different, their social style, their methodology of buying, the way they operate. It's different today. And we've got to challenge our salespeople to recognise that old pyramid, a little bit of opening, then features and benefits, and then closing the sale. Close, close, close. I mean, I can remember I was taught when I started ABC, always be closing. Well, the reality is closing is not what it's about. In fact, we should have a flashectomy. Get rid of that actual word and think of opening accounts. Take that pyramid and turn it completely upside down and put a high emphasis on meeting the customer properly, qualifying properly, using a technique that I've developed over the last few years with one of my major clients called a customer profile, where you sit the customer down and you talk about what their needs are rather than stand in the yard or as the traditional car salesman does, ask 2 qualifying questions. Hello, sir, what are you looking for? A new or a used car? Do you want a wagon or a sedan? And that's about as close as they get to qualifying. Customer says, I'm looking for a second-hand sedan. And so the salesperson takes the customer to a vehicle. And sadly, in a lot of cases, they they cover them in verbal diarrhea. That is, they talk just features and benefits. They think, I've got to tell them all about this car. Instead of finding out what it is the real need, what is the right choice for that person. In the motor industry today, we have an infinite amount of choice. Colours, shapes, sizes, types, massive. And when you walk into any car sales room or used vehicle yard, you'll see loads of different cars. What does that do? Well, if you're a customer, it often confuses them. And there's a rule. Confused customers don't take action. So coming up with a new methodology takes time. And you can't break those old cycles instantaneously. Instead, we must start recruiting outside of the industry, spending real time training people. We must provide effective induction training in the motor industry, just like they do in other professional businesses. Luckily, as I said, the client organisation I worked with, they allowed me to develop an induction process so that people would actually knew what was expected of them. And amazing. Some of the participants said, we've never been taught anything like this. We've never been taught how to sell. We've never been taught about health and safety. We've never been taught about alarms. We've never been taught about what we should do. Now, in the past, we've just assumed that, well, come in, they'll get to know, they'll do. You know, we've assumed that they'll get it somewhere along the line. The challenge today is developing a new style of automotive selling. You see, the products have changed. Look how dramatically they've changed from when I first came into the car industry. When you pushed a button on the floor or a little plunger to get the windscreen wipers to go. Things like automatic seat belts and heated rear windows, radial tires, they were all extra. Today, everything's there. Today, the cars are just so much more sophisticated, and so are the buyers. The question is, why are the people who are selling them not as up to the play with why do they still keep selling the old way? Why is it they still do that old road to the sale, that lock them down, tie them down, make it happen? It's time to think differently, to challenge the paradigms of dealers and sales managers and salespeople, to challenge that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's a paradigm that we have to shift. Sir Ray Avery, one of New Zealand's most famous entrepreneurs, said, I want to be a disruptive manager. I want to disrupt the status quo. And that's what I want to do. I want to disrupt the way the car industry works today. I want to disrupt the old-fashioned way and challenge the thinking of our salespeople to think differently. See, it's very clear. The difference between a successful salesperson and an unsuccessful salesperson, I say it's clear. The successful salesperson has developed the habit of doing the things the unsuccessful salespeople will not do. And we need to develop new habits, new methods, and train our staff more effectively. Now, if you agree with my thinking, please give me a call. I'll introduce you to an alternative. It's called Auto Coach.